2016 has been a really great year for gaming, as many really great games have been released this year. Today I want to take a quick look at some of the games that I got to play in 2016. Just before we start, this list contains a few remasters and re-releases that were released in 2016, while the original game was not. But now, without further ado, let's get started. First off is the game I probably spent the most time on this year, Dark Souls 3. This game managed to captivate me with its amazing combat and intriguing lore, as well as its great level and enemy design. As someone who didn't play too much of Dark Souls 1 because of how bad of a port it was, I was pleasantly surprised at Dark Souls 3's return to its roots while adopting a faster style of gameplay not unsimilar to Bloodborne. It also runs very well, but unfortunately doesn't look as good as I had hoped. I've spent about 400 hours in it so far, and I imagine that my time spent will only increase once the second DLC is released later in 2017. Next up is a game that I actually just started to play about a week ago. Dragon's Dogma: Dark Arisen. Originally released in 2012 for Xbox 360 and PS3, Dragon's Dogma got a PC release in January of this year. It had been on my radar for a while, but I only bought it during the last Steam sale, and at this point I'm not sure whether this was a mistake or not. Not because it's a bad game, because it's not, but rather because I find it very hard to stop playing. Don't get me wrong, the game has some issues, like the mediocre story or the rather empty open world, but the sheer amount of freedom you get and how you want to play is amazing. Everything from creating your character to choosing your class and your fighting style is customizable. And even if you don't like the class you played with for a while, just switch to another one whenever you feel like it. The combat system and the boss fights in particular feel and look great. This game probably handles boss fights the best out of most other RPGs in recent history. All of this, in addition to the pawn system that lets you populate your party with other players' pawns, makes this game an amazing choice for any open world RPG fan. Speaking of RPGs, I don't think I could get away with this video without mentioning The Witcher 3's Blood and Wine expansion. I know that The Witcher 3 was released in 2015, but I think that Blood and Wine is big enough to almost be considered an entire game. If you own The Witcher 3, both Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine are an absolutely no-brainer to buy. Set in the sunny and colorful Toussaint, Blood and Wine is a worthy conclusion to Geralt's adventures. Staying in the realm of RPGs, let's take a quick look at Final Fantasy X. I already have a video on the game, so if you want to hear my thoughts on it, you should check that one out. Let me just say that I really enjoyed playing through the game of my childhood again. The HD remasters are well done, and whichever platform you play this game on, it's well worth it. This one shouldn't come as a surprise to you, but Skyrim Special Edition also released this year. If you look at my channel, you can probably guess my opinion of the game, and even if you can't, I have several videos on that topic. I think that the Special Edition will really start to take off once the new version of SKSE is released later in 2017. Until then, it's a nice thing to have for people who don't already have a massively modded and mostly stable Skyrim. Moving away from the role-playing games, this year saw the release of another very successful remaster. Or rather two remasters and a re-release, the Bioshock Collection. The release of the first two games with updated visuals gave me enough reason to play through the entire series again, and I can say one thing for sure, they really hold up. While the Bioshock games have never been really impressive in terms of their FPS gameplay, they are still very good designed games with great storylines, amazing worlds, and several what the fuck moments. If for whatever reason you haven't played them yet, the collection is probably the best way to do so. Of course, this year also saw the release of Overwatch, the game that literally everyone was playing. While I myself am not a big fan of the game, I can definitely see the appeal. With a constant release of free content and a fair progression system, alongside some decent shooter mechanics, I can see where its success comes from. I just can't really see myself going back to a hero shooter after playing years of TF2 and growing tired of it. I'm not saying it's a bad game, because it's obviously not. It's just not for me anymore. Maybe I'll revisit Overwatch in a few months, but at least right now, I'm more caught up in a different game. That game being Rainbow Six Siege. Yes, I know this game technically came out in 2015, but I think it was close enough to the end of the year to be viable for my list. Especially since it really started to shine this year. While the game had and still has some issues, Ubisoft has steadily been fixing most of them, and Siege has definitely evolved into a great tactical first-person shooter. I'm not gonna talk about it here too much, since I plan on making a video about it later on, but if you feel the need for a tactical first-person shooter that offers a different experience from most other shooters on the market right now, this game is worth checking out. Now let's get a little more niche. The Monster Hunter games have unfortunately always been exclusive to consoles, as have almost all games that were in any way similar to them. This changed this year with the former PS Vita and PS4 exclusive game God Eater 2 Rage Burst. If you're not turned off by the anime style and feel like hunting down monsters with giant swords, lances, scythes and so on, which also all double as a gun, because why not, then this game might be worth a look, especially when you get some friends and go hunting together. Staying with the anime aesthetic, let's move over to BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma Extend. Hell of a name, I know. For those of you that don't know, BlazBlue is a series of fighting games, with Chrono Phantasma Extend being the newest iteration on PC. Unfortunately, I do not own a fight stick yet, so I can't really enjoy the game to its fullest, but it is a good entry point into fighting games with an option for simplified controls and an extensive tutorial teaching you everything you need to know. It also has an amazing soundtrack and a decent story mode with some really good voice acting. If I was any good at fighting games, I could probably go into more detail, but since that's not the case, I'm going to stop here. Which brings me to the last game on my list, Stardew Valley. I also have a video on this one that I recommend you watch if you want to hear my thoughts on it, but this game is probably the only one on the list that actually surprised me in a positive way. I did not expect the game to actually click with me as quickly as it did, or at all for that matter. I never had an interest in farming games, but I gladly made an exception for this game. If you're looking for something chill to play, this game is worth considering. And that concludes my list. Of course I played many other games as well, but those were just the games that actually released on the PC this year. I am aware that many other great games got released as well, and I'm sure I'll catch up on those eventually. If you think you played a game that I or others might enjoy, and that isn't mentioned here, feel free to tell me about it in the comments. Chances are I already know something about it, but you never know. But that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a good start to 2017. And I'll see you in the next one.